Hi there, my name is Luisa, but everyone calls me Lu, and I am very excited to welcome you to my little corner of the internet. I've been wanting to create this channel for a really long time now, but I just never got the courage to do so. And you don't know this yet, but I was actually going way out of my comfort zone, so I'm very nervous about it, but I'm also really excited. I don't have any crafting friends, just one of my friends likes to do some watercolor here and there, like 1 or 2 times a year. And I'm very excited to be chatting with you in the comments below and share our ideas and inspiration and talk about projects and yarn and colors and everything we find ourselves thinking and dreaming about when it comes to knitting. I like to make some modifications to patterns here and there, like add some short rolls, change the shoulder shaping and things like that. And sometimes I just like to knit as the pattern suggests. So yeah, I think I'm just rambling now and let's just get down to business. So first things first, let's talk about what I'm wearing. This is the Arctic Light sweater by Tuva Kiko or Veronica Lindberg. I finished this project in 2024, October if I'm not mistaken. And this is a top-down raglan sweater all over cables with if a fair amount actually of twisted stitches. So the cups, the body ribbing, and also the collar are twisted stitches, twisted rib, and also some of the cable motifs have twisted stitches. So just be aware of that if you don't like knitting it. And also I've made some few modifications actually to this pattern. I chose to fold the collar right after I finished knitting it, knitting the twisted rib, instead of after the fact like the pattern suggests. And I added some short rolls to the back to get a better fit. And for the Italian bind off, I just went for a slightly modified Italian bind off to make it look neater next to the twisted rib. At least I think it looks just a little bit neater. I had another all over cable project on my needles that I'm gonna talk about later in this video, and I'm also planning some big modifications to it, so stick around and then we can chat about it. Also, I have some pretty detailed notes on everything I modified when it comes to this pattern, the Arctic Light. So it's all linked down below in my Ravelry page, my Ravelry notes, project notes. And in case you wanna check it out, feel free to do so. And if you happen to prefer a video format instead of reading my notes, just say so in the comments below and then maybe I can get around to make a video telling you all the details and modifications I made and how I approached this pattern in general and show you everything in greater detail. I'm thinking about making this video already, so just tell me if you think it would be a good idea or not. So now that this pattern is out of the way, let's talk about the first FO of today's episode. So since this is the first podcast episode, I don't actually have any FOs to show you, so I thought it would be nice to show you my latest FO, which is my Lune shawl. This is actually my mom's Lune shawl because this was my Christmas gift for her in 2024. And this is a pattern by Natasha Hornby. I think I forgot to say that. So let's talk about the construction because this is actually quite interesting. And oh, by the way, this is Margot. She is the co-host of this channel. So okay, this pattern is actually knitted in 2 sections. So we have the upper body of the shawl, which is this first section here all the way down to, well, where my finger is. So all these vertical bars you see make up the first section of the shawl, and all this second section here is the second section of the shawl. So okay, you start knitting this first section from point to point, which is all the way over here, and you just do some increases until you get to the midway point, and then decreases to get this triangular shape. After that, you just pick up stitches along these 2 edges to knit the second part of the shawl. So the white, and I think you in camera is showing off brown, but it's actually deep red or burgundy or wine colorway, whatever you want to call it. So the white and deep red are actually a mosaic stitch, which is pretty interesting. This was my first mosaic stitch. This was my first mosaic project, and you're only knitting with 1 color at a time. So it's very easy to follow. The charts are very easy to read. and you don't have to worry about any tension issues or catching floats or anything like that. So I loved doing mosaic color work, and I actually have a second pattern in the making that I will talk about later in this video. So yeah, so this section here is all mosaic stitch, and all the beige sections you see is all textured, and the designer calls this a star stitch section or star stitch pattern. I didn't really like leading this beige section because you're always doing some yarn overs or passing one stitch over two other stitches on your needles. So it's very slow going, and I don't know, it's just a slog to knit, and let's just say that I was happy when the final star stitch section was done. So yeah, I just finished this show with an Icelandic bind off, and I chose to carry the yarn, let me show you here, I chose to carry the yarn all the way along the upper edge of the show. Can you see here? Along the upper edge of the show. I don't think you can tell, I don't think you can see, especially when you're wearing the show, because it's right next to your neck. And my mom is not bothered by it. Let me just get it here so you can see. And there was just no way that I was going to weave in all those ends. It's like dozens and dozens of ends. So there was just no way that I was knitting this project without carrying the yarn along the edge. And I am happy I chose to do it that way. I just made a slight modification to this pattern. When I was reading a lot of project notes, people were talking about how when you knit mosaic color work, your tension gets a little bit looser. So I just chose to knit all the colorwork sections with a, let me check, with a 4mm needle, and the star stitch sections, also all the beige sections, using a 4.5mm needle. This was just for the upper part, the upper body show. The second part here, I knitted it all up using a 4mm needle, because the pattern actually accommodates for this difference in gauge, this difference in tension. So right before you start knitting the last star stitch section, the pattern calls for a few increases just around here to accommodate for this difference in gauge. So I don't know why the pattern only does this for the second part of the show and not for the upper body, but I'm sure the designer has a reason, I just don't know what it is. This pattern comes also with instructions to add some tassels to the bind off, and it's actually dozens and dozens of tassels, and I'm not a big tassel person. This pattern already has so much information and texture, and everything is just so beautiful that I don't think it lacks anything by just skipping the tassels. So that's what I did, I just skipped those all together, and I think it is beautiful anyways. So since this is the first FO, since we are calling this the first FO, I thought it would be interesting to do a full cost breakdown. I just think it would be nice. I like to do this for all my FOs. So let me just read so I don't get this wrong. I used 53 grams of the beige yarn, the Drops Flora yarn. Now that I'm saying, I think I forgot to tell you about the yarn. I think I did. So, okay, the beige yarn is actually Drops Flora. I have the yarn here, let me check. Yeah, so the beige yarn is actually Drops Flora. And this is colorway 7 or beige. Let me see, here. This is Drops Flora. And the other two colorways are actually Host Garn Super Soft. So the deep red one is colorway Jasper, and you can see is a beautiful deep red. And the white yarn is also Host Garn in the colorway Bleached White. So as the name suggests, it's pretty white. But I liked it, and I didn't get any color bleeding or anything when I blocked this show, and I did a full wet block. And okay, so now let's go to the cost breakdown. So I used 53 grams of the Drops Flora yarn, so just over 2 balls, and 64 grams of the Bleached White Super Soft, and 54 grams, so also just over 2 balls, of the deep red Jasper colorway. So that plus the cost for the pattern, which cost me €6.90. This pattern cost me in total €26.08, which I like. I mean, I'm fine with it. I think it's worth for a show this beautiful and this big. So I'm quite pleased with that, and my mom loves her Christmas present. All right, let's talk about the first whip of today's episode. The first whip of this podcast, of this episode, is a recently released pattern by Andrea Murray, which is the Through Lines Show. So this is the Through Lines Show, and I'm looking at the viewfinder over there, and it just looks so beautiful. I'm so excited to finish this project. Okay, so let's talk about the construction. This is a triangular shaped show. Let me try and show you the whole shape. I'm just working on the increase section still, so you can't see much, but I'll put some pictures so you can see better. This is a triangular shaped show with I-cord going down the edges. So let me try and show you here. So over here with some I-cord on both edges, and this is a all over mosaic color work. So this is the pattern I was talking about when I said I have a second mosaic color work on my needles. And this is it. I am using BC Garn Bio Shetland in 3 different colorways. So this one, it's not black, but it looks like black. I would say this is a gray, a dark gray color. And I have the yarn here. Okay, here. This is, like I was saying, BC Garn Bio Shetland in the colorway 45. And the white one, this one, it's actually a creamy yarn. It's not white, it's just a light cream. And this is the colorway 01. Right here, this is colorway 01, which I find really beautiful. And the third and final colorway is this rusty one. It's almost orangey, almost rust. Is how I would describe it. Is also Bio Shetland in the colorway 53. It's coming out a little bit more orange than it is in real life. It is very beautiful, and I will see if I can take a better way and put it here so you guys can see. So like I was saying, I am just still increasing on this show, and I am using a 4mm needle, and this project has been on my needles for 16 days so far. I am just making one modification to this pattern, which is the size. Actually, I don't even know if you can call it a modification or not. I just passed the point of the number of increases, the number of pattern repeats the designer suggests. But I have so much yarn left still that my idea is to just keep on increasing until I knit half the weight of one of my yarns. And at that point, I will start the second section, which is the decreased portion of the shawl to get this triangular shape. And I think I forgot to mention, but this is a 16 row pattern repeat. Let me try and show you here. Pattern repeat, yeah, it's easily memorizable, and just like I was saying for the Lune shawl, this is a mosaic color work, so you only knit holding one color at a time, so it's really easy to follow. There is no chart, so it's only written, the instructions are written, there's no chart. So it's very easy to follow, and you don't have to worry about floats or anything like that, like I was saying. And I am loving this project so far. I'm very excited to have the final object and be able to wear this shawl this year, hopefully, if it's not too hot by the time I finish this. So yeah, I would just, like I said, I would just keep on increasing until I reach the halfway point for one of my yarns. And if it ends up being too long, I'm not actually worried about it. I can just wrap it around my neck a second time. Or sometimes I like to do a little knot like this, with the two ends, and I think it looks quite cute. So I'm now worried if it ends if it ends up being too long when this show is actually finished. The only thing I'm actually worried about is, as you can see, this is curling up so much. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah, it just looks like a little snake at this point, which is kind of freaking me out. So yeah, I just hope this blocks out when the project is done and it stays nice and flat. And Andrea Murray says, has a comment about that on the pattern PDF. So I am just going with the flow, and I just hope this blocks out. Otherwise, I will have a really, really long snake wrapped around my neck. So let's go to our second whip for the day, which is, let me check, which is my sweet shop blanket. So, my sweet shop blanket. I know I'm probably late to the party because when this pattern came out in, let me check, in September of 2023, everyone was talking about it. Everyone was making a sweet shop blanket, and it just took me a long time to gather all the yarn I wanted to use for this project. So I'm late to the party, but I'm here. So this is a pattern by Laura Penrose. When this pattern came out, I had just finished my No Frills cardigan by Petite Knit using, let me get it, using this yarn, which is, okay, I'm still learning where to point the yarn so you can see, right? Okay, so this yarn is Footprints in the colorway 5, and you should see the information in the screen. And this is colorway number 5, like I was saying, and this is a cotton wool blend with some nylon in there as well. So I was just finishing, I had just finished actually knitting the No Frills cardigan, and I had one bow left over, which is this one. And I knew I wanted to make something special with it because I had some good memories associated with this yarn. I was traveling when I bought this yarn and all that jazz. So I knew I wanted to make something special, but I didn't want to make another garment because who needs two garments looking like that, right? So I was thinking about some homeware or something like that. And then Laura came out with this pattern, and I immediately knew that's what I wanted to make with this yarn. So it just took me a whole year actually to slowly buy one colorway here and there of these Footprints. And it was just December of 2024 when I decided to take the plunge and buy the whole amount of yarn that I needed to finally start knitting this project. So I realized that I still haven't shown you. Let me get this. Okay, here. So this is my sweet shop blanket so far. Oh, okay, here. This is my sweet shop blanket so far. I only have 4 squares, but I am loving it to death so far. And let's talk about the yarn, so then later we can talk about my plan and my plans and ideas for this project. So like I was saying, oh no, I forgot to tell you about the construction. Let's talk about the construction first. So I'm just looking at my notes so I don't forget anything I want to say. So like I was saying, this is my sweet shop blanket, and as you can see, this is a all over garter. I think you know that by now, but I'm just gonna tell you anyways in case you haven't heard of the sweet shop blanket. So this is a all over garter stitch blanket. You just knit up these squares, these little squares, pick up stitches along the edges to join the other squares as you go, so there is no seaming, and you just pick up a lot of stitches and do a lot of short rows. So this pattern calls for German short rows, which is really easy and simple to do. And this is a very easy and mindless project. Just got a stitch knitted flat, so you just knit all stitches. It's very easy, and this pattern was originally intended to be knitted using scrap yarn or advent yarns, advent calendars. So each square here uses 10 grams of fingering weight held double or 10 grams of dicky weight yarn. and the same thing applies for the MC color, the white yarn. As you can see, this project is intended to be knitted up using scrap yarn, but I'm using 100-gram balls. So I am buying yarn to knit up this blanket. So the cost of this project is already astronomical. So I was really mindful when I was choosing my MC yarn, my main color, this white one, to try and bring the cost here, to try and bring the cost down a little bit. And now this project has been on my needles for 16 days. And let's talk about the yarn. So the CC colors that you can see here, 3 of those are footprints, like I was saying. So the orange one, the purpley one, and this green beige one are footprints. And I will just insert some footage showing you each and every colorway and the name or the number of the colorway, because if I were to show you here, we would be here all day, because I'm using 17 different colors in total for this blanket. So I am using 11 different colors of this footprint, and this is just another colorway. I find it, I just love this yarn. Out of the 12 colorways, I just bought 11. The only one I skipped had a lot of black sections, and I was afraid it would make the whole blanket a little bit darker, so I just skipped that one. And I complemented the number of colors I needed for the size that I'm gonna make with another yarn. So while I talk about this footprint, I will just keep showing you the different colorways so you can see, but you should be seeing a better image or a better description of this colorway here on the side. And like I was saying, this is a cotton wool blend with some nylon in there as well. And as you can see, can you see clearly with this purpley one? I don't think so. Let me say, okay, this one I think you can actually see. As you can see, the different plies have different colors. So it's just like a spin cycle yarn, I would say. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think the spin cycle lovers are gonna come after me because I'm just comparing this yarn to spin cycle. But anyway, you know what I mean. So this is the plies have different colors. So, and I'm holding it double to get a DK weight gauge because this is actually fingering weight yarn. And let me get the other colorways. And I just love it. You have different shades of pink, of blue, of even beige ones, and purple and green and everything, and even some multicolored ones. And I just love this yarn so much. So that's what I'm going for. 11 of the 17 different colors I'm using for this blanket. And the other 6 colors I'm using, I just went to my local craft store and I bought some sock yarn that I liked to get 17 colors in total, because like I was saying, I was trying to bring this cost down because this is a way over my what I'm comfortable with already. So okay, the other 3 I'm using, like I was saying, footprints and 2 different yarns, 2 other yarns. So one of these 2 is Rico Design, which is just a regular sock yarn, nothing fancy, just went to my local craft store to get it. And I am using 3 different colorways of this yarn. It's just fingering weight sock yarn. And as you can see, there's no different colors for the plies. It's just like, I mean, I've never knitted with hand-dyed yarn, but I would say this is what hand-dyed looks like. And I just chose 3 different colorways that I like. This is a wool nylon blend, regular old sock yarn. And the third and final yarn I'm using is actually Regia 4-ply color, which is also sock yarn. And I'm using also 3 different colorways. So there's this multicolored one, and you can see the different plies with different colors. And this one, which is a little bit more blue. Let me show you here. This one. And the third and final color is this one, which is coming out a little bit more orange and yellow than it is in real life. And I'll see if I can get some more accurate footage showing off this colorway. But yeah, that's the yarn I'm using. I am happy with the blanket I am getting so far. People never talk about, or at least I've never seen people talking about, the back side, the wrong side of this blanket. And I would just like to show you because I think it's just so beautiful. So this is the right side, and let me just get this out of the way. So this is the front side, the right side. As you can see, the details are just so beautiful and so well thought through. I don't know, but this is the back side, and you can see the slip stitches, which is where you pick up this. Let me get this out of the way. And you can see where you pick up stitches to start a new square. And I just love this wrong side, this back side. And I am just so happy with it because, I mean, this is a blanket, so you're often going to see both sides. This blanket is always here and there, you know, because you're sitting on the couch and you take it off. So you're always seeing the back side, also the wrong side. And I am just so pleased that the wrong side is also beautiful because I was always worried about it. But yeah, this project has been on my needles for 11 days, no, 16 days. This is my second blanket so far. Not the stitch blanket, this is my second blanket. And my first blanket was actually an excavation blanket, which I have linked down below, my Ravelry notes. When I was knitting up that blanket, I was using only scrap yarn, and I just had different weights, different amounts of fingering weight yarn. And every time I finished knitting one row, because you need two rows for each color, or at least that's what I did. So every time I finished using one color, I had to stop and think about what color I wanted to use next, because like I said, I had different amounts of each color, and I had so many colors, and I wanted a well balanced blanket overall. So the experience of choosing my next color was really stressful, and I found it really took the joy away from the project. So upon starting this project, I knew I wanted to have at least a good idea of where I wanted each color to go. Not as a set in stone rule, just as a guideline, so I didn't have to think so hard, at least, about my next color. And so I just assigned a different color pen that I thought best represented each of the skeins I have. And I just colored the spreadsheet the pattern provides. And that's what I'm doing to knit up this blanket. I'm just following the spreadsheet, and I'm quite pleased with the results so far. But let's see. The biggest size for this blanket is actually froll size, which is 9 by 11 squares, and I want to knit just a slightly bigger size than this froll size. So I want to knit a 10 by 12 squares, which is supposed to give me 174 by 145 centimeter blanket, which is going to be huge, but that's what I like. When I'm sitting on the couch and watching a movie, I like a big blanket, so that's what I'm going with. For each of these squares, let me just talk about my stats for each square, because I think it can be helpful for you guys. So for each square, I am using around 9.5 grams of each CC color, and around 10 grams of the white MC color. The white one is coming off a little bit yellowy on camera, but it is actually a creamy white, but it's not as yellowy as it's coming off. I would describe it as a white, plain white yarn. Each square also takes me about 2 hours to knit, so each triangle takes me about an hour, so 2 hours in total. And I am getting 14.5 squares, centimeter squares, so 14.5 by 14.5 centimeter squares. So that's why my blanket is going to be so big. I just, so far at least, I just made a slight, I mean, yes, I was going to say it is a modification, but I don't think it actually is. So the pickup line here, let's just say that I needed this square before I needed this blue one. So you just have to pick up stitches along this edge to start knitting the blue section, the blue triangle for this square. The whole pickup edge here, the pickup row, at least my pickup row was a little bit loose. I tried using a smaller needle, but since you're knitting flat and doing short rows the whole time, I couldn't use a smaller needle because you're gonna get a different gauge. So after I was finished knitting each square, I just used a tapestry needle to tighten it up, all the pickup stitches throughout all the pickup stitches actually, and I was going to show you the difference between before and after tightening up these stitches, but I forgot to take a picture of that. Actually, it's not that I forgot. I thought I was going to be able to knit a fifth square before recording this podcast, but I didn't have time. So I plan on knitting a fifth square tonight. So I'm just going to take a photo to show you guys what I'm talking about. But I am quite happy with this just little modification that I'm making to this pattern. And I am weaving in the ends as I go, as you can see, because there's just no way that I was going to weave in the ends after I finish this blanket, because you're gonna have hundreds of ends to weave in, since I plan to knit 120 squares. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the Swiss Shop blanket so far. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell and all those things YouTube likes in case you wanna follow along for this little saga, because I plan on knitting this blanket in 4 months. I plan on knitting 1 square a day. I think it's doable. Let's see down the road. But I plan on knitting this blanket in 4 months. So we'll see. Now let's talk about our third whip of this podcast, which is my traveler hoodie. Our third whip, like I said, is the traveler hoodie. This is also a pattern by Andrea Murray. I just blanked out for a second, but this is also a pattern by Andrea Murray, and this pattern came out in April of 2023. I didn't think I could be influenced by social media. I know that's a little naive to say, but I didn't think I could be influenced by social media until I found myself wanting to custom this project. When this pattern came out, I saw many pictures online. People were talking about it, people were knitting it up, and I just found it cute and beautiful, but I didn't get the urge to cast on. I didn't even save to my Ravelry favorites for a long time. It was just the end of 2024, I think, when I found myself itching to knit this hoodie. And yeah, I guess I can be influenced by social media as well. So this is my traveler hoodie. It's actually, well, I don't know if I can, let me, I don't know if I am showing you everything, because I can see my viewfinder when I hold it up like this, but this is a bottom up drop shoulder hoodie, like I said, so it's actually not very easy to show you. I can't try it on. I can't try it on to show you the fit, and for now it just looks like a giant rectangle. So this is a all over garter stitch, I would say, pattern. Let me hold it up so you can see. This is a all over garter stitch pattern. Let's just call it garter stitch. And the pattern comes with 2 options in case you don't want to knit a hoodie. So you have 2 options. One option is the hoodie and the other option is a crew neck with 2x2 rib, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, and also the pattern has this pretty simple and beautiful detail going down the sides of the body. Some slipped stitches. I mean, let me show you like this. Yeah, some slipped stitches going down the side, both sides of the body. And this project has been on my needles for 58 days. I haven't had a chance to knit on this project for a few weeks, a little over a month actually, because of some personal reasons, nothing related to the project or the pattern or the yarn or anything. And I am just finally ready to start knitting this project again. So I am knitting size 3, which is supposed to give me 12 centimeters of positive ease. And I am using, let me check, I am using 4.5 millimeter needles for the body and 4 millimeter needles for the ribbing. So the yarn I'm using for this project is also Husqvarna Super Soft. This is just a coincidence. So this is also Husqvarna Super Soft, also in the colorway Jasper. And maybe you can see better the shade of this deep red shade that I was talking about when I was talking about the Lune shawl. So this is, can you see it? I think so. So this is a deep red shade of red, which I find quite beautiful and interesting. It is not, it has some little specks of white and blue and black. I think you can see. Yeah, you can definitely see. And I hit gauge using a 4.5 millimeter needles. I don't know if you noticed by now, but I always have to size up my needles. Usually I need to go up 2 sizes in order to get gauge because I'm a really tight knitter. So yeah, I was able to hit gauge using 4.5 millimeter needles. And there's just one thing I'm a little concerned when it comes to this project, which is this is fully blocked. As you see, this has been blocked, wet blocked, and it didn't grow at all, like not even 1 centimeter. And the pattern advises to be mindful of growth when you block this sweater because of this stitch pattern. And mine didn't grow like at all, like I said. So I'm just going with the flow. I'm going with what I have. And my plan is to finish the body, like the main part of the body, and seam the shoulders over here, and then do a full wet block again. And if this sweater turns out a little too long for my liking, I just do some sweater surgery and crop a little bit. This pattern actually calls for a cropped sweater, cropped length, but I don't really like cropped tops in general. So I'm just going with my regular length that I know I'm always happy with. So let's see if it ends up being too long, that I just do some sweater surgery, and will be just a little adventure to make this project a little bit more interesting. But I am loving knitting on this so far, and I am happy with it. This is my second time using Husqvarna Super Soft. And like I said, this yarn is called Super Soft. And I don't really get why, like where the name comes from, because I wouldn't say this yarn is soft. Least of all, super soft. And like I said, I blocked this project. I knitted the Lune shawl. There's another swatch that I made for another project that I also used super soft, and I blocked that as well. So and at least for my taste, for my liking, I wouldn't say this is soft. This is a little bit toothy, a little bit rustic. At least that's how I would describe it. I wouldn't say this yarn is soft at all. It is not nearly enough to cause any itch. At least I hope not. But I don't know where the name comes from. Do you know anything about it? I don't know if it gets softer with wear, with continuous block and washing. I don't know. If you know anything about this yarn, if you have knitted a project using this yarn and you know anything I can do to make it a little bit softer, please tell me, because I would like it to be just a little bit softer. Okay, so this is the Traveler hoodie, and there's not much to talk about. My plan is to separate for the sleeves this week. So I think on the next week's podcast episode, we'll have some more interesting things to talk about. The fourth and last whip of today's episode is actually another sweater, and that is the Belle and Sebastian Pullover by Sarah Nordland. This pattern came out just a couple of months ago, December of 2024, and this is a drop shoulder all over cable sweater featuring some moss stitch going down the side of the body and the underside of the sleeves as well. I am knitting size 3, which is supposed to give me 15 centimeters of positive ease, and this project has been on my needles for 11 days. So let me get the yarn. I am using Gepard Garn Woolia for this project, and this is a 100% merino wool, organic merino wool, and this is the colorway 106 Oat Gray. I am using 5.5mm needles to knit up this project, and here's the thing. I have big plans, big modification ideas for this pattern. So from the pattern photos that I'm showing you, can you see this big moss stitch section going down the side of the body? And do you see the point where this moss stitch section meets, let's call it that, meets the cables for the sleeves? So yeah, I don't actually like that. So I like the overall look of this sweater, but this is specific section where the sleeve cables begin, I'm not a big fan of that. To me, it looks like the cables are coming out of nowhere. So I just like to bring those cables to the edge of the shoulder, to this point here, but and skip this moss stitch section altogether. But that basically means changing the shoulder construction, changing the construction for this whole sweater. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I am excited, but I'm also scared. This is my biggest modification so far that I've ever made to a pattern, and this is what I have so far. This is just the back panel, I mean the first section of the back panel, and as you can see, there are some increases that are supposed to be like this, going towards your shoulder, but on the back. And from this point on, the pattern actually tells you to keep on increasing and add the moss stitch section. So that's why I stopped here, because I wanted to talk to you guys about it in case you have any ideas, in case you have any suggestions on how I can do this, because I'm basically going blind and on instinct, so I don't know if it's going to work out the way I envision. So my plan is to actually change from a drop shoulder construction to I think it's called satin sleeve. I'm not exactly sure if that's the right terminology, but I think the right name is satin sleeve. So I plan on bringing the pickup edge to the edge of my shoulder, and then go straight down towards my armpit, towards my underarm. And I think that's called a satin sleeve, but I'm not sure. So my plan for the back panel is actually to keep knitting straight down from this point on, so going down here for a few centimeters, at which point my plan is to add some increases to get this panel going under my arm, to be ready to meet the front panel once that is done. I don't know if it's going to work out. This is my idea, but I don't know. I've never done anything like this, so I'm pretty scared, but that's what I'm going with. And other than that, this is my first Sarah Nordland pattern, and I was watching a podcast the other day. I think it was during the weekend. I can't remember which podcast it was, but someone was talking about the yarn quantity suggested for Sarah Nordland patterns and how they are not exactly accurate. So that got me a little bit worried if I am gonna have enough yarn to finish this project, or if I'm going to be playing yarn chicken. I don't know, because the beginning stages of the Belle Sebastian pullover, people said that for Sarah Nordland's test knits, you don't actually have to finish the whole garment, you just have to finish the body, or separate for the sleeves, I'm not exactly sure, and finish one sleeve. So the testers don't actually aren't able actually to give the yarn quantities information to the designer. So that's why sometimes the amount suggested in the pattern it's not exactly accurate. It's not always accurate. And I don't have as much extra yarn as I would like. If I had known this, I've bought maybe 1 or 2 extra balls of yarn. I don't know. So yeah, I am a little bit worried that I'm going to run out of yarn, but we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. And also, I am a little bit worried this is going to be too small. I can't say that for sure right now because this is not much to go on. But if you look at the pattern photos, you see that this moss stitch section just on the arm, right? There is no moss stitch section. I can say the 3 times faster. There's no moss stitch section on the body, on the upper part of the body, torso, I would say. So my thought was, if I just skip this section altogether, this last cable on the body, which is actually a faux cable if I'm not mistaken, should fall about here on the edge of my shoulder or something like that. So that's why I'm planning on knitting a satin sleeve pullover. So yeah, I don't know. In my mind it makes sense, but at the same time, if I look at this, it just seems so small that I don't know if it's enough to go from shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, I don't know. My plan is to just keep on knitting and at least finish the back panel and then see if I have to go up a size or not. Because if I go up a size, then I will be even more worried about running out of yarn, because I didn't plan on going up a size when I bought the yarn. So I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, this is my plan for my ambitious plan for the Belle and Sebastian pullover by Sarah Nordland. And if you wanna tag along and follow me through this journey, please subscribe and ring the bell and all those things YouTube likes, like everybody always is telling you. So yeah, and if you have any suggestions, please send them my way, because I think I need to read everything there is about this kind of modification to a pattern. So at this point, people usually talk about their acquisitions and all things knitting related they purchased during the course of the last week or so. And I guess I could show you my pattern book that I bought a couple of weeks ago. This is the Knit to Wear book by Veronica Lindberg or Tovakika, one of my favorite designers. I'm thinking about recording a little video showing every pattern in this book. I don't know if you would be interested in that or not, so let me know. Yeah, other than that, I don't usually buy yarn every week. I mean, I never buy yarn every week. I don't have a big stash because I like to buy yarn when I have a certain project in mind, and I usually just buy the yarn when I'm about to cast on said project. So I would have nothing to show you if I were to add an acquisition section to this podcast. So every time I buy something, it's usually because I'm casting on a project in the next week or at least in the near future. And you can say that I don't usually choose the right yarn for the right project, but I have mixed feelings about this. I don't actually think they are right and wrong yarns. I mean, I have fun choosing the yarn I want to use for a certain project that I have in mind, and I like to buy the yarn that I'm comfortable with the price point, that I like the color, that I like the fiber content, and I have fun while I'm working on the project. I'm usually proud of my finished object, and I have a lot of fun wearing everything that I make. So that is what matters, if you ask me. So I don't mind if I chose or not the right yarn or the best yarn or type of yarn or fiber content or number of plies for a certain project or not. So that's just me. And I don't have many whips on the go at the same time. I usually have 3 whips This week I showed you 4 because one of them is a blanket, so it's going to take a lot of time to finish this project. So yeah, I usually just have 3 whips. I don't like having more than 3 because I just get a bit overwhelmed. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any suggestions and things you would like me to talk about, or if you have any comments in general, just leave them down below. I would love to read them. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a really good time. I certainly had a lot of fun recording this video, and I will see you next week. Bye!